To get the white elephant out of the room, the birthday boy that this badge is referring to that's pinned to me is me. I am said birthday boy. It is my birthday.
So tell him happy birthday.
So tell me happy birthday. Birthday festivities has concluded. What did I want to do for my birthday? Well, after being kind of bullied online by Howard on our Discord about all the amazing pubs that he's eating at right now, which are absolutely beautiful pubs, and Millennial Mank, because they just like to get on there and make fun of me. If you would like to make fun of me, hop on Discord. We went down to a lovely British pub in Orlando. Didn't think I could find one. We found one.
Yeah.
So we're sitting there eating. The owner comes up and talks to us. He's from Manchester. Lovely person. We tell him we do YouTube, and he's like, "Hey, could you give a shout out to my restaurant? It's a lovely restaurant. We make Sunday roasts and stuff like that." And I was like, "Well,
it's really good."
It was really good, but I was like, "We do British, two British people, and I don't know if you would, be the right audience." He said, "What if I give you some fresh bangers? Would you do it then?" And I told the guy, "We don't accept bribes. We have never accepted bribes. And we are especially not going to accept bribes from the best of British pubs in Davenport, Florida, 150 California Boulevard, who does the best British grocery store and the best British foods. We're not going to do that." Why do they call them the best of British pubs? The best of British pubs, because all the other pubs around are shit. So we was talking to this gentleman, and he was telling us how much he missed home.
Yeah, so we decided to look up a video to see what it's like, the differences between American homes and the homes in the UK.
Yeah, because we want to know. And who do you go to when you want to know anything about the UK and the difference between America and the UK? You go to Austin the Pond, who is a British man who come over to America and he now lives. And his beautiful, beautiful British humor could dim up a room. Let's check it out and see what he says about 4 ways British and American houses are very different.
Today we're going to look at several ways in which British and American houses are very, very different. Having lived in the United States for over 11 years, I've lived in my fair share of houses here, just as I did in Britain. So I think I have a decent grasp of how houses...
Most people I know has lived in houses.
Well, quick note, when we were in the UK, I really wanted to just knock on random people's door and say, "Hey, can you let us in and let us see your house?"
Especially when we got out to the countryside, because then it started looking more like cozy and stuff. And I was like,
the outside was beautiful. The around it was beautiful. So I was like, I kept telling him, like, what would they do if we just knocked on the door and said, "Hey, we just want to see what the inside of your house looks like"?
And I told her they would call the cops.
Yeah.
So we moved on.
We didn't do that.
Houses work. Even tiny ones like this one, which is about 400 square feet. I'm joking, this is a professional studio. Don't question me. And so without further ado, let's take a look at 4 ways that British and American houses are very, very different. Neither Britain nor America is devoid of variety when it comes to their housing styles, and that's because, well, with each sort of passing phase of history comes new designs to meet new needs and just new style preferences. And because of this variety, I'm not going to cover every single one of them because that would keep us all here until next Wednesday, which would be good for my metrics, but not good for your sanity. So let's take a look at how some of the housing styles do vary from country to country. In Britain, a lot of the distinctive styles are also tied up with the period in which they were built. So you could go all the way back to the Tudor period, and you do find Tudor housing dotted around here and there. In fact, if you go to the city of York, for example, there's quite a lot of sort of Tudor buildings there. They're quite ornate with wood paneling, and they're the sort of place that you might imagine that Shakespeare lived. But wood is less indicative of British houses than you would see in America, where wood is actually quite a common material for building houses. In Britain, from about the...
That was one thing that I really appreciated about houses in the UK. Was they seemed like they had history. I mean, obviously not all of them. They're building new houses. Everybody, it's not 100% just nothing but just history, but there is just a lot of history there. So it just compared to Florida, Florida's just plaster. It's just plaster around wood and brick, and all the houses look the same. But in the UK, the houses really got character.
Yeah, that was the cool thing about it.
The Georgian period onward, you were going to see quite a lot of brickwork. Georgian period houses absolutely exist. People live in them, but they tend to be these opulent-looking houses that have notable pops of white rectangle, which are just the windows. It's very nice. They look like dolls' houses that you should live in. But then come the Victorian age, we started moving toward these sort of like orangey brick buildings, right? And a lot of them were terraced houses, which is what Americans would call row houses. And they just look very industrial, right? You could imagine a chimney sweep going up and getting his face covered in soot.
It looks like
And then we
Mary
move into
Poppins.
the Edwardian period, where houses are sort of similar to those of the Victorian age. They're just lighter colours with more chimney sweeps, if Mary Poppins is anything to go by. Now, during World War II, when the Nazis bombed the ever-loving crap out of us, a lot of the houses went boom. And then after World War II, there was a housing boom. And you started to see a build-up of new, more simple houses, kind of like the one I grew up in. Now, that's a castle. That didn't happen. But I grew up in something more like this. That's not Lawrence's actual house. Despite what fairy tales may suggest, most of us have never lived in a chocolate box house, but those do exist. A chocolate box house is the kind of house you might see in the Cotswolds, right? It's very quaint looking, it's got thatch roofing, and it looks like this. And if, like me, you're wondering why it's called a chocolate box house,
That's the kind of house that I like. I've seen people on TikTok like rethatching those roofs, and it really is straw. That's just layers. That's just layers of straw. Is
Really?
all that is. And it lasts for like a long time.
Wow.
And like that looks like
That looks like a fairy tale.
it does. I was gonna say it looks like doors are gonna pop out of there, but I know you probably don't like that. I mean, they're the historical. I wonder why they call them Tudor houses though. Like, did the Tudors? What's a Tudor? 'Cause there's a house that says, is this like, don't they relate that to King Henry VIII? Is that around the time this came, like this style started?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. So many questions.
looks like this. And if, like me, you're wondering why it's called a chocolate box house, yet it doesn't look edible, it goes back to the 1950s/60s when chocolate boxes would have on their facade a kind of depiction of a beautiful English countryside. And these types of houses would often feature on said box. Now again, this is by no means an entire repository of British houses. Neither is the following an entire repository of American houses. It's just the more common ones that you will see when you are here. So Cape Cod houses, you know these types of houses, right? They're the ones with the wood paneling down the side. And I said a moment ago that, you know, America makes good use
Those are more in the
of
Northeast.
wood in this country because there's just so much of it.
Mm-hmm.
So many woodlands around the country, and it's a huge country from which to pull that resource. So they do, and it's cheap. But funnily enough, the Cape Cod style has its history with English settlers who came here in the 17th century and started building Cape Cod style houses in New England. Now, during the post-World War II period, partly to provide, you know, housing to veterans coming back from war, there was a revival of Cape Cod style housing, and it started to be built not just in New England, but all along the East Coast and in the Midwest, and even out west. Anybody that's seen the Goonies will know that. And it was this style of housing that I first moved into when I moved to the United States. And I've got to say, even despite the Midwest winters, it was really warm. You know, you'd think it would be quite drafty because of all of the gaps in the wood. You could go to specific streets or neighborhoods or areas of the United States and only find these houses for miles and miles. So I lived in one of those, but my grandparents-in-law lived in what is known as a ranch-style house. And these are sort of really low-down buildings, don't typically have 2 floors to them. And once again, these houses became popular after World War II. There was just
See, now a house like this is a different style. You can tell this is from a different state. And the only reason you can tell it's from a different state is the brick underline. If it was all stucco, just that straight white, that'd be Florida.
Yeah, all the houses like that, but just usually come in a lot of colors.
Yeah, you know, most of the houses in Florida is all one story. And I think it has something to do with the hurricanes. They just build them out wider instead of building them taller. I mean, you're not going to come here and not see no 2-story houses.
Yeah.
You will have a hard time finding a basement.
Mm-hmm.
There's no basements here. I want a basement.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
No open floor plan. That's stupid.
generally a big sort of boom after World War II, again in the United States in that regard. The 20th century, though, did see more and more revivalism of old styles. So you had, you know, mock Tudor, or shall I say revival Tudor, which more or less replicated the kind of Tudor buildings that you would see in England with some differences. And I've seen those types of buildings in Boston, for example. I've also seen them in Indiana. As well as that, the 20th century saw colonial revivalism, though most people don't live in those houses. houses. Maybe one day when I get that grand piano, I'll think about it. And so that's an extremely basic and rudimentary breakdown of some of the different styles that you'll see in each country. But there's one big difference between all of the houses in both countries, and it's this. Let's face it, it's time to face up to some home truths. Compared to America, Britain is microscopic. The United States is absolutely massive and needs to be stopped. And the same is true of each country's average house size. Right, so in the United States, houses just tend to be way more spacious. And we're not just talking about millionaire houses here. We're talking about your average house. So the average size of an American single-family home is approximately 1,600 square feet. In the UK, we're looking at an average of about 900 square feet. So why the difference? Well, one reason is
It's a very big difference on average, especially if you assume that the size of the family is not the same or is about the same.
Yeah.
But one thing I noticed, like with British houses, is like our houses here will have 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
So where in the UK, it's like 4-bedroom, 1-bathroom.
Yeah.
And that's weird.
It is very odd.
Like that's so, like, coming from an American standpoint, like, because I get on I like to daydream and look at prices of houses, and it's literally just so, it's like they don't take into consideration more than one person will use the bathroom at the same time. Or it's just because the houses are so old that they only have one room for plumbing and it's not plumbed throughout. I don't know. But I just thought that was weird. That probably has something to do with the square footage.
Yeah.
So
Let
maybe
us know how many bathrooms you have. Good.
you can't just go around asking people how many bathrooms they have.
I want to know.
we're all a bit packed together. Actually, that partially accounts for why everything is smaller in Britain. Not everything, not the cups. But in America, there's just so much land, and relative to that land, so few people. So, make them as large as you want, and they do. They're huge. But also, a large majority of American houses are relatively new, meaning that they were able to benefit from, building methods and materials that other countries like Britain were not. And the post-war expansion of American highways meant that this was enhanced even more. Those materials could be moved around the country more easily, and of course, this ushered in a more grand housing development. Now, all size aside, try saying that after 10 tepid tequilas, things become subtly different once you're inside the houses of either country. Is gadgets the right word? I don't know, I'll have to fire my graphics team. Either way, we're essentially talking about accessories, the things you have in your house that make that house work, even when you're doing the house work. So for example, airflow, right? America's bigger on its overhead fans and air conditioning units. We don't usually use those. I mean, we like to punish ourselves, especially in the summer, but we can crack a window open and it doesn't get oppressively hot, always. And so we've mostly been fine with this situation. It does mean that insects get in. So daddy longlegs will get in the house and mosquitoes, but it's a small price to pay for not having air conditioning.
That was one of the biggest differences between here and there is, and it might just be the time of year that we went there, but I feel like Britain's temperature doesn't fluctuate nearly as much as ours does. And I just mean on the daily basis. Like during the day here in the summer, it can be 98 to 103 degrees. And then at night, it drops down to what? 83? 84. I feel like,
And in the spring and the fall, it can range more than that even.
yeah, sometimes it's in the spring it'll be 93 during the day and then 60 degrees at night.
Yeah.
It's almost a 30-degree difference. But I noticed when we went there, pretty average was 12 degrees, 12, 13 degrees difference, Fahrenheit, obviously, in the UK. So it made a lot more of a temperate level. And I know they don't get above like 70 degrees is a hot day in the UK.
Yeah.
So the air conditioner wouldn't be needed, a fan. But here, you just heard the numbers. And it's not like when we got home from the UK, it was March. And it was a high of 93. And then next month, it got up to 98, and it did not stop until about mid-November.
No.
So it's not really, and it's popular all over the United States, but air conditioner is a necessity in places like Florida, Texas, Arizona. You have to have it.
Yeah.
It would be a health hazard not to have air conditioning in your home.
The plug sockets, of course, are different in both countries too. In Britain, you have the 3-pronged outlets, and in America, you sometimes have 3, but occasionally 2. And they're smaller in America than they are in Britain. That's one of the few things about which you can say that. Separate taps, of course, for hot and cold water. Americans combine.
He was saying that, but I think they put out like so much more voltage there
Really?
than here. Yeah, I think like we're like a very low voltage. And you remember like you put in your blow dryer in the UK?
Yeah.
And it just exploded?
Yeah. That was awful.
I think that's because it wasn't rated for a UK outlet.
So the outlet was too strong for the blow dryer?
Yeah, because like here you get shocked. You stick your finger in an electric plug here, you're going to get shocked.
I did that.
Yeah.
But not my fingers. Stick my hair clip in there.
If you do that
When I was little.
Yeah. If you do that in the UK, you're going to get electrocuted.
Really?
Like it's going to set you down.
Them all into one. Where's the logic in that? I'm joking. And while we're on the subject of sinks, most British sinks don't have that sort of food waste disposal thing that you press the button and it does the noise. Amazing. That was one of the best things I discovered after I didn't discover it. Somebody else came up with the idea. I used it. But it's amazing. It's just so pleasing to know that all of that gunk gets broken down. And just don't put your hamster in there. I've learned that lesson from someone else. I didn't do it, just read about it on Reddit. Letterboxes. Firstly, Americans don't call them letterboxes, but mailboxes, and typically don't have them on the door, but outside in the garden, yard. The garden/yard is different, often smaller.
Okay, so in order to have a garden in the United States, you have to have a plot of land with stuff growing in it. Mm-hmm. But it has to be purposely grown. It's like you can't just put a pot of flowers, because if you put potted flowers out in your backyard or have flowers in your backyard, that's still not a garden. You have to have, and I think
you got to plant it and take care of it.
But I think it's such a nicer word.
Yeah.
It's so much more elegant. British people is like, drinking tea in the garden.
Yeah.
And then Americans is like, I'm grilling burgers in the backyard. Y'all come over. It says so much about our cultures.
Well kept up, depending on the family, and just massive yards here with, mesh fences and things like that, or picket fences. Back inside, a lot of properties in the United States will have walk-in closets that are built into the actual walls of the house, whereas in Britain, you bring your own closet/wardrobe to put your clothes in, and that takes up more space, I've just realised. So we're shooting ourselves in the foot every step of the way.
So I seen that one. Like I said, I was looking up houses because I like to daydream. And I noticed that something about the houses, like on top of the bathroom thing, was that all these houses, the outlines, like if you look at a blueprint of an American house, just look up, houses for sale in Orlando and go to where it shows a floor plan of the house. When you see the floor plan of the house, what you'll notice is in every room, there's closet space.
And always in the master bedroom, there's always like a walk-in closet, so it's a lot bigger.
And this was weird because I was looking at these houses and they was around 500,000 pounds, these houses. So I'd assume that they're middle to upper middle class homes, more of a luxury style. They was detached, but they was like in a close neighborhood. You guys probably red brick. You guys probably know what I'm talking about. But on the floor plan, two things just struck me so odd, that it was 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, which was good. Mm-hmm. But in America, one of the bathrooms is always dedicated to the master bedroom. So it's a private bathroom off of the master bedroom. But in this one, that was the master bedroom. And the only way you could tell it was a master bedroom is because it was slightly bigger and it had a closet.
Oh, it did?
Yeah. And then the other 3 bedrooms that was upstairs did not have a closet. Mm-hmm. And it like met in the middle, like it was a square house, bedroom, staircase. And then right here was a bathroom for all of them to share. Mm-hmm. And then there was another bathroom downstairs. And it took me forever because why does this house look off to me? Mm-hmm. And it was that. It was like your mind's like telling you there's something different, but
Yeah.
you don't know why it's different. And then I figured it out. I was like, there's no closet.
There's a closet and a big closet in our room, and then the kids each have their own. And then there's a small one in the hallway, too.
Well, I'm sure they have a linen cabinet.
Well, I don't know.
Except when it comes to washing machines and dryers. How cool is this? We combine them both into one giant cube, whereas America has two separate cubes. And tea drinkers that we are, we love our kettles.
But the thing is, that's very odd for us Americans that he doesn't mention is a majority of the UK homes, washing machine and dryer are in the kitchen.
Oh, yeah. I seen that on the... What show was we watching?
What was it?
Oh, 90 Day UK.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we have like a separate room specifically for laundry with like a wash machine and dryer, which I have actually seen the one that's like the 2-in-1.
Yeah.
In some apartments, they'll put that sometimes.
Yeah, but here we have a big wash machine, big dryer, and its own room titled laundry room.
Mm-hmm.
So if you see LR on blueprints, it means laundry room. Do you know how many cups would get thrown into the washing machine?
Yeah. If we first moved there and it's in the kitchen.
Yeah, I'm just going to open the door, throw in a dish, and just close it. Which I guess it'll get clean. I guess it don't really matter.
It'll probably break.
Yeah.
But they're not just any kettles. These are ones you plug in and then hit the switch to turn on the plug.
You guys bullied us into buying one. We still use it, but you guys bullied
and
us.
then, you know, you turn it on, don't need a stovetop, and it heats up. Just like that. You've got your water, Bob's your uncle, pour it into a mug. There's your cup of tea. In America, you do have the stovetop kettles, and part of me likes that because it does this really pleasing whistling sound at the end. Now, if you were paying attention during that list, you may have noticed that I touched on some of the terminological differences when it comes to housing in either country. And that brings us on to our final entry. It wouldn't be Britain and America if they weren't two countries separated by a common language, and the same is true of the housing world. So let's finish with a rapid fire round looking at those very words. So here in Chicago, I live in a flat, except in America they don't call it flat, it's called an apartment. Something else that you'll find in America though are these condominiums or condos, if you don't fancy saying a word that has condom in it. And we do have those in Britain, they're usually called common hold properties. And I suppose most British people wouldn't go around using that term, whereas you actually hear the term condo quite a lot. It's been suggested to me that I move into a condo, and it sounds good. I mean, when I first heard the term, I thought it sounded like I might be moving onto a lakeside boat or something like that. It is like an apartment, but it's one you would buy. It's real estate. Now, as a child and young adult, I grew up in a house that was known as a semi-detached house. That's when you have a house adjoined to one other house on one side, but not on the other side. In the United States, this is known quite simply as a duplex, which is not a wrestling move. If it is adjoined on both sides with another house, then you are part of a line of houses. That
was something I noticed when we first got on the train from the airport to London. We came out of Gatwick and we were riding the train to London Bridge Station. And we're passing these towns and we start seeing these houses. And the only thing that you seen was either row houses or duplexes, like these semi-detached houses. And I was just looking at it, I was like, this is so odd because here houses are all
separate.
Yeah, they're all separate. And unless you're in an older part of America, like New York, New Jersey, that's the only place you really see row houses, and Boston and all that.
There's some in Pennsylvania too.
Yeah, just the original colony states have them. Like here, the only time you see houses together is either right in downtown, but as soon as you leave them, they're all individual houses with individual yards.
Yeah.
But in the
unless it's an apartment.
Yeah.
Or a flat.
Which I don't think that'd be that big of a deal. Like to be so close to your neighbor.
In all reality, some of the houses are so close together they're not touching.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't make much difference if they were.
That's true.
That are known as terraced houses in Britain. In America, they're known as row houses because they're all in a row. presumably. Then there's council housing in Britain versus the projects in the United States, and that's just another way of saying public housing. To control the electricity flow in Britain, you have the mains power. In America, you have the grid power. And what if you're sick and tired of the place that you're living in and you just want to relocate somewhere else? In America, you would just simply move. In Britain, you'd move house.
How is that grammatically okay?
Move house.
Yeah, you're not moving the house. You're moving the home.
Oh, man.
Could you live in a British home?
Only one way to find out.
Yeah.
Try it.
Yep. Like and subscribe, and maybe one day you'll see us move into a British home. Or we'll just do an Airbnb and see how we feel about it. Maybe we'll get an Airbnb where you live. We'll be your neighbor. Hi, neighbor. Like and subscribe. I'm Rich Trippin.
And I'm Tiffany.
And that was the 4 differences between 4 ways British and American houses are very different. I think there's more than 4, but I'm okay with that. Bye-bye.